begins to move people in that direction of the importance of worldview. But first let me say that my introduction was, I went to graduate school. I want to meet with all people who are in graduate school, who are African. That's what I want us to do. I want us to set up something where we have sessions with them. Why? Because graduate school is where they get our minds, steal our minds, take our minds. It is about European ideology in almost any graduate school that you will go to. And you have to know that. Okay? And that is where you are rewarded for affirming their concepts. So you have to fight, or you give in, or, a range of those different things. But we can lose a lot of people there, so we need to have our own graduate school happening. I was in graduate school. I was already clear politically. I was really having my education from Nana John Henry Clark. Okay? I knew that was the real deal. The graduate school thing was, okay, I can be doing something in a structured way and come out of this with a degree. Thought it would be just a master's at first, and then, you go on. That's what happens. I chose anthropology. Why? And I don't want to get a whole lot into me, just giving you a little background. Why? Because anthropology, this is important, was the place where Europeans talk about us. Okay. And frankly, us and others like us, who were supposed to be primitive, was supposed to be a window into their, almost non-human past. Really. I mean, you have to look at some of the things that were said. I'll mention Morgan and other people like that, but if you look at these European so-called scientists, the things that they felt about our cultures and civilization was that there was this dichotomy, civilized and primitive, we were the primitive, and that helps to define them as the civilized and so forth, okay? So I'm going into this because I want to study Africa, but I'm going into it with a head that is about us, and is a Pan-Africanist, because of Nana Clark and my political stuff, okay? So I get there in the first class I got to take, they tell me is, I think it was maybe Foundations of Sociological Thought, and then you get Foundations of Anthropology and stuff. And I said, oh, so this is what this is about. That is where you get their ideology. That is where you get their conceptions of us, which is the opposite, the dialectic of their concept of them, okay? So that by the time, much later, I decided right then what I was going to do was to use that as an opportunity to study them. And that's what Yorugu eventually, 20 years later came out. But later in my work, as I discovered Joe, this is probably I was out of school by that time. I saw the power in this two-cradle theory. Because what he does is that he single-handedly confronted the European worldview and the social scientific paradigm that comes out of that worldview. That's what Diop did. Many of you who read him and know the two-cradle theory, which I'll go into a little bit in a minute, kind of probably take it for granted. Say, oh, this is great. But you don't realize the full impact of what it meant, the implications for him to do that at that time, and with the training that he was supposed to have gotten it's phenomenal. It's revolutionary, that theory. Let's look at why. His critique flies in the face of European theory, because European theory of culture and civilization was universalist, unilineal, and evolutionary. You got that? They argue that there's this one line in which things develop. And of course the line goes from what they considered to be the lowly, coming up here to the civilized. Who was the civilized? They. And they would be quite specific about this and describe civilization in terms of their culture. Okay, and that was the accepted view. And again, Bob Baruti can tell you that in all social theory, European social theory, there is that evolutionary view, and that there's only one line, so that we actually have to fit in there somewhere. See what I'm saying? And they got the answer of where it's all going, and it's going to them. Now, what does that do to the African who's got to fit in there? What does it do to your thought? That's what it means to be Eurocentric. You are literally centered in their culture. Diop looked at all of that and said, no. There's something wrong. First, there's something wrong with that. He must have felt. And he said, no, this does not fit with my vision for what I want for my people. It doesn't fit with my love for my people. It doesn't fit with my ideology. Okay? And then he went about constructing his own theory of cultural development. You see? Which deconstructed theirs. Diop was doing, we're talking about 1950s, y'all. You hear what I'm saying? Yes. And alone. All he had was the ancestors, yes, which is a lot to have. But he didn't have like an army around him of people who are here, on this side. He didn't have that. Plus, where was he trying to do his work? Well, let's keep going. So what I described there, remember that, universalist means it's same for everybody. Unilineal and the evolutionary scheme. These are the underpinnings of the foundations of European social thought and social science. Sociology, you have Herbert Spencer. You look at his ideas, you're going to get that, right? Okay, you help me with any of this. And then in anthropology, you had Tyler and Morgan. You had others, but those are like supposed to be the bedrocks of their work, of anthropology, right? They call them the fathers of anthropology. Imagine the courage that it took while being trained, while studying in one of the sacred temples of European academia to do what Diop did. And of course they would punish him, by rejecting his work. Incredible courage, which comes from deep love of African people. And Guevara has talked about revolution being a love affair. And I feel that. I feel it every day of my life. It's that kind of relationship. And that's what Diop had. So the love affair was